good, isn't it? Remember what it used to be like?
What, subsistence economy? Oh, I'd rather forget it. Working day in and day out, digging, planting seeds to grow the food so that we could eat it to give us energy, so that we could go on and do more digging.
And plant more seeds, to grow more food, to eat, to give us more energy, and so on.
And so on.
And so on.
Ah, but we thought of a way out of that.
I'll say, a bit of brain power. That's all we needed. Instead of each family supporting itself by doing everything, we divided up the labour so that each family specialised in what they did best.
And that way, the shepherd family got even more wool from sheep because they got better at raising sheep. The farmer family grew even more wheat, and the fisher family brought in even bigger catches of salmon.
It's happened with all the families.
And all that extra skill they learnt in all that time they saved from travelling about from place to place, and all the boring preparatory work they no longer had to do for all the different jobs, meant that 8 families produced enough for 10. We had a surplus.
And that surplus provided for the needs of the 2 other families, the masons and the carpenters. And they built a bridge so we could feed our animals on better pasture.
Then they made an irrigation system that watered the land and gave us even better crops.
I suppose you could say the road to a bit of modest prosperity began with that one idea of mine.
Yes, I suppose you would.
Well, it's scarcely a life of luxury we live, but at least we have enough to know that we and the children won't starve. And we can even lay a bit by for tomorrow.
And have a little bit of time for ourselves and the family to do other things.
Like making that shawl.
Like making this shawl.
That's a nice shawl there.
He says nice things sometimes.
But the trouble is...
Sometimes he doesn't.
It's taken weeks to make. Weeks.
It's true, it did take weeks. Well, 2 weeks anyway.
Shearing the sheep, washing the wool, spinning it, dyeing the thread, weaving it into cloth, finishing it off.
So
it's a lot of effort to put into a shawl. It'll be worn out after a couple of years. It's nice, though.
That's what I call a wholehearted appreciation.
Hey, what's going on over there, then?
Ooh. What?
He says he's from a village up the river.
Just look at all that wonderful stuff he's got in that boat.
Ooh.
Cooking pots to die for.
Oh, yes. Apples. Oh, wonderful red apples. Oh, I wish we had apples like that. Oh.
And shoes for the children.
Aye. And axes. And knives.
Well, what's he going to do with all that stuff? Eh? What?
He says he's a trader.
What's a trader?
He says a trader is somebody who exchanges whatever surplus goods he's got for whatever surplus goods you've got.
It's true we don't live in a subsistence economy anymore. We don't have much to spare. We've got a bit of spare food, but it isn't as good as the food he's got. Our apples aren't half as nice as his. Hey, what's he doing? Hey, if he thinks he can trade me in exchange for all that stuff, he's got another thing coming. Tell him.
He says your shawl is cool.
Oh, he likes my shawl, and so he should. Took me weeks to make.
He says he needs 20 shawls.
20?
He'll give the whole boatload of stuff for 20.
20?
They're for the King of Wongaland. He's got 20 wives.
What?
If he only gives one of them a shawl like that, the others get so jealous his life simply isn't worth living. Do we have another 19 like that?
Do we have another 19 like that? That took me weeks to make. Well, 2 weeks anyway.
Oh, he said he'll be back in 2 weeks.
I've never seen cooking pots like that before.
Aye, and those apples look delicious.
We could have done with a new pair of shoes for the kids.
He said he'd give us everything in that boat for 20 shawls.
Oh, look, there are 10 of us here with a bit of time to spare. But even if we all work flat out, we'd only make 10 shawls in 2 weeks.
We need a genius to produce another 10 shawls. A genius. Or a miracle.
got an idea.
Uh-oh.
Why does it take so long to make a shawl? I'll tell you why. Because there are so many processes you have to go through before you can turn what's on a sheep's back into something that you can wear. Well, first, you've got to catch your sheep. Then you've got to shear it. You've got to fetch water to wash the wool. And then you've got to spin the wool into yarn. And there are dyes to make before you can colour your yarn. Then you've got to weave your yarn into cloth, and even that isn't the end. Putting on knots and tassels that give a finishing touch takes ages.
Every one of those processes takes ages. You can see why. Setting things up, putting things away again. And even if you're good at weaving, it doesn't mean that you're good at dyeing or spinning.
And that's where my idea comes in. There are 10 of us here. Suppose we each did only the thing we were best at. One will do the shearing, enough wool for 20 shawls. Another would wash it, all of it. 3 would spin it into yarn, and 1 would dye the yarn. Well, that would leave 2 to weave it and 2 to do the finishing off.
That means you wouldn't waste time setting things up and putting them away again.
Right.
And there's something else that could happen too. It needs a genius to see it. Since they're only doing the things they're best at, everybody will get better with practice.
Genius. Anyway, why don't we give it a try?
Why don't we?
Well, at first, it looked like we'd never do it in time.
Obviously, the dyers and weavers couldn't start until the dye was ready and the wool was spun, so they helped shear the sheep.
It wasn't long before we all got very good at our jobs. Well, we might not have been ready on time if the shearers and the spinners, who finished their jobs quickly, hadn't helped the weavers and the finishers who were getting behind.
But we did what we set out to do.
And in exchange, we got what we wanted.
Oh, lovely.
Nice pots.
Oh, champion.
There you are. And this is how we did it.
We divided the work into separate processes, so that each one of the 10 of us specialised in just one thing. The result was we doubled our productivity. We produced 20 shawls in 2 weeks.
Before, using the old ways, we would have produced only 10. We'd created the extra ones by division of labour by process.
But this time we used the surplus in a different way. We swapped it for somebody else's surplus.
And the result is, we've now got a lot of things we couldn't have made for ourselves.
What we discovered was the division of labour by process. It's created more surplus.
And by trading that surplus, we've taken another step along the path to prosperity. Oh, the cooking I can do with this.
Oh, just look at that. There are still quite a few places in the world today where division of labour by process is still at much the same point as in our village community. Some people spin, some people weave, some people finish off the goods. In the modern industrial world, it all looks very different, and so it is in a way, but if you follow manufacturing through, you'll see that it's still divided by process in just the same way, even if it is on a massive scale.
The shearing and cleaning of wool is carried out on huge commercial sheep farms. The raw wool is spun into thread on enormous machines with 200 spindles that turn out 23 miles of yarn a minute.
The yarn is woven on gigantic electrically powered looms that produce almost an acre of cloth a day. It's dyed in special machines and then made into goods like these, which are sent off to the docks for export.
And in return, we get other people's surplus. Beautiful fruit, tea and coffee, things we cannot produce ourselves. We don't swap it directly the way our villagers did. We sell our products and use the money to buy the tea, but it comes to the same thing.
And it's made possible only because we've created a trading surplus, and created it through division of labour by process, one of the foundation stones of the modern industrial world.